Weathermen Underground. The Weathermen Underground was a left-wing militant organization that operated in the United States in the late 60s and early 70s. The group emerged from the SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, a prominent student activist organization. The Weathermen believed in the use of violence and direct action in hopes of overthrowing the United States government. Their choice to riot and bomb alienated them from other anti-war organizations, including the SDS. The group's name was inspired by the line from the Bob Dylan song, "You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows." This reflected their belief that a revolutionary movement could be sparked by a small, committed group of activists who were attuned to the political climate of the time. In October 1969, the Weathermen Underground organized a series of riots in Chicago that became known as the Days of Rage. The group hoped to spark a revolutionary uprising by mobilizing a mass of angry, disaffected youths to take to the streets. The Days of Rage riots were a bold and controversial attempt by the Weathermen Underground to achieve two objectives. Firstly, the group sought to demonstrate its organizational prowess and militant spirit both to the government and to its own members. They aimed to prove that they were capable of taking on the authorities, even to the point of engaging in violent clashes with the police who sought to interfere with their protest. Secondly, the Days of Rage was intended to bring the war home by showing the American public the brutal reality of the Vietnam War in their own streets. By engaging in violent confrontations and causing chaos and disruption, the Weathermen hoped to draw attention to the horrors of the wars and the need for radical change. The Weathermen did expect to attract tens of thousands of protesters, but only a few hundred showed up. Despite the low turnout, the Weathermen proceeded with the planned riots, resulting in clashes with the police and significant property damage. According to news reports from the Times, 28 police officers were injured during the riots, and 6 members of the Weathermen Underground were shot. A total damage incurred amounts to around $183,000, and 1 police officer was left paralyzed as a result of the violence. On March 6, 1970, a bomb exploded in the Greenwich Village townhouse that served as a safe house for members of the Weathermen Underground. The explosion killed 3 members of the group and marked a tragic turning point for the organization's history. The bomb had been intended to kill U.S. soldiers and NCO non-commissioned officers at a dance at Fort Dix, the military base in New Jersey. One of the bombs accidentally detonated during the construction, and the blast was so powerful that it destroyed much of the townhouse and damaged neighboring buildings. During the incident, 5 weathermen were present, with Ted Gold, Diana Oughton, and Terry Robbins dying in the explosion. The 2 other weathermen present at the time were forced to flee and go into hiding, and Bernadine Dorn, one of the 2 that fled, was later placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. The explosion in the townhouse marked a turning point in the Weather Underground's history and led to increased public attention and scrutiny of the group's use of violent tactics. The accidental bombing at the Greenwich Village townhouse was significant, not just for the tragic loss of the 3 weathermen, but also for the profound impact it had on the organization. The death of their members led to the weathermen to take a critical look at their tactics and ultimately decide to abandon killing. From that point forward, the group implemented a policy of issuing warnings before any bombing attacks to ensure that there would be no accidental deaths. This shift in strategy marked a major turning point for the Weather Underground and demonstrated their commitment to their cause while avoiding senseless violence. The Weathermen Underground was a radical leftist organization. Their tactics led them to be labeled as a domestic terror organization by the FBI. Over the course of their existence, the Weathermen Underground carried out a series of bombings and acts of violence, taking credit for 25 separate attacks. Some of their most notable bombings included the 1970 bombing of the NYPD headquarters, the 1971 bombing of the U.S. Capitol building, and the 1972 bombing of the Pentagon. In each case, the Weathermen Underground issued warnings to ensure there would be no casualties. Despite their extreme tactics and lofty goals, the Weathermen Underground ultimately failed to achieve their objectives. The group was small, with fewer than 600 members at its height, and lacked the organizational structure and discipline necessary to mobilize the masses. The Weathermen's mismanagement and unclear goals were significant factors in their eventual downfall. The group's decentralized structure made it difficult to coordinate actions and maintain a coherent strategy. Infighting and personal rivalries also continued to the Weathermen's decline. As the group struggled to maintain its momentum and attract new members, internal divisions and disagreements grew more pronounced. By the mid-1970s, the Weathermen were already on the way out, with the end of the Vietnam War in 1975, which had been a major focus of the group's activism, further eroding the organization's relevance and support. Despite their failure to achieve their goals, the Weathermen Underground remain a significant and controversial chapter in American radicalism. The group's tactics and ideologies continue to inspire debate and reflection, even as their legacy serves as a reminder of the intense political and social upheaval of the era.